to talk about ROI. It's social media return minus investment divided by investment percent. For once in my life, I'm not going to do all this speaking. We're really, really lucky to have an amazing panel here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start first with measurement, and then we're going to work back to actual tactics, which types of programming really is driving the most ROI. But when we start to actually talk about ROI, one of the things that we hear is quite frequently the difference between vanity metrics and actual ROI. How do you guys use the mix of them? We frequently, like for example, I'll work with PR firms who will say to me that they have created deep analytics and measurement that drive to ROI. They present it to a client, and the client says, oh, we don't care about that, we just care about likes. So how do you balance the two? And Jennifer, if you don't mind starting, just how do you balance ROI versus vanity?
That's like a very big blanket question, but one of the things that I can say with the social platforms evolving is, and especially in the space of media buying, is that especially a platform like Facebook has really allowed for you to determine your cost per conversion. So for a very small fee, you can actually set up a Facebook ad, determine how much you're spending in order to get that conversion. That conversion can be somebody signing up for your newsletter, it can be somebody going to your website, it can even be somebody purchasing your product if you own your website and your backend. So you can actually track that consumer all the way from the beginning to end. The other thing that has really opened up this space, and Pinterest has started doing this, is that we're all just like pixels basically, and we have behaviors and things that we do online, that the new sort of trend is lookalike audiences. So it's taking something like a newsletter capture. So taking your newsletter list, maybe you have 5,000 people, maybe you have 500 people. And so maybe that's something you've done organically. You've done some PR, you've done some word of mouth stuff, you had an event, things like that was maybe a little bit more on the inexpensive side or wasn't a straight hard through cost. You can take that contact list and you can create lookalike audiences. You can go into Facebook and say, I want to target the same people that I have over here and find them in that space. So I think the biggest trend that's happening is from an analytics perspective is that different analytics are sort of, you're tracking different behaviors in different spaces, but the biggest thing is now figuring out, just like you would think about an integrated marketing campaign, it's my email lining up with my website, lining up with my social media, the same needs to happen with your analytics. So just saying I'm measuring engagement over here and then I'm measuring conversion over here and they're not related is not the right way to do it. You need to think about how they're all connected.
I mean, I would say the two biggest analytics that matter outside of actual money coming into your pocket is how big your audience is, but having a relevant audience. So if you have 50,000 people and none of them really care about you or would buy your product, then zero. If you have 500 people who are serious about your product, who have either purchased it before or are interested and are relevant to what you do and how you do it, that's important. And then on top of that is engagement. Literally, how much time and attention people are willing to give you on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. If it's an email newsletter once a week, so that's an open rate. If it's on Facebook, they'll tell you in the analytics, engagement rate. Twitter will do the same thing, basically all the platforms do the same thing. You know, Facebook will tell you how many people viewed a specific part of your video, how long. YouTube does the same thing. Time and attention are the two biggest currencies in the digital space. Because without people's time and attention, you're not going to touch their wallet.
And just from my perspective, I think when you talk about ROI, it's many different things to different industries. So understanding that it's not one size fits all. Understanding that a movie studio in Hollywood, we're LA, so I'm going to be very topical, but the way they measure social with regards to ROI and how it impacts a movie release is a lot different than how an audio manufacturer uses social media to drive sales in a local dealership or in a local area. And you mentioned vanity, so vanity metrics in that regard, at the end of the day, revenue is what we all are after, right? And there are steps along the way, measuring engagements, measuring influencers, and utilizing influencers that all contribute to that. It just depends on what industry we're talking about, what are the parameters, the KPIs are always different, but social is so powerful in driving all sort of the industries in that regard.
Yeah, I would just add that, I started at this 10 years ago, and being able to really have hard measurement against social media was very difficult in the beginning. And I used to literally take like sales graphs, sales charts of like our sales, and I've done this in the movie business as well, where I kind of look at a time period and see the sales on a daily basis and see where the spikes are and line it up with my social activity to see if the two spikes align. And sometimes that's kind of as close as you're going to get. You're not going to be able to convert one-to-one, but I can at least go back to my supervisor, my boss, or my owner or whatever and say, look, we did this activation during this time period and look at your spike in sales, and they were comparable. So that's where you can kind of need those two analytics.
How we used to pitch business in the for the movie industry.
Yeah.
We want to predict creating sales is what's in social discussion about other businesses. So in this room, how many of you guys are actually at this point doing ROI social, where you're actually able to tie it back to sales metrics? And how many of you are looking to add that in, but are still learning how to do it? Perfect. So what about that? Like, we're just starting out a program, and we're just, because what you guys have said is exactly right. There are two differences, right? There's the social media like, and then there's the social media like by the influencer that actually means it drives to a sale. So how do you, and we could probably actually start with on your end, was how do you work with influencers, or how do you identify the difference between a like and a real like, or an impactful like, or a like that drives to an ROI? Can you actually tell that in advance?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think especially with the influencers on social, there's the advent of, or now the emerging ability to find influencers that are ambassadors of your brand or your product or service that have no agenda other than being authentic lovers of what you offer. Meaning, they aren't hashtagging or captioning your brand on social. These are authentic moments in their life where they're taking pictures with a massive following, and they're putting out.
Yeah, it's what it is. You're doing great.
Thanks. And as far as the most effective influencers you can find that absolutely are the true ambassadors of your brand, it is those people. And to find those people and then align with them based on what they actually follow on social media, which you can do today. There are analytics, there are technologies out there that allow you to see who these people are by region, so these micro-influencers, not the big, Bruno Marses of the world and folks that are oftentimes paid, that are corporate sort of driven, authentic influencers in your region. Reach out to them, align yourself with them, give them free product, in advance of a sale or a promotion, 2 months before the fact. There's this great example last year. Ford Fiesta actually, great sort of a case study with them, but they had a big promotion in a particular city in the country, Ford Fiesta, and they found the top 10 influencers in that city 3 months before the actual sale happened. And these influencers were not paid ambassadors. They were authentic, but massive Twitter and Instagram followers. They reached out to them, gave them a free car for 3 months leading up to the sale. And the car was 90 days, do whatever you want with it. All we ask is that you take pictures of yourself in the vehicle. And I didn't give the car back after the sale. And it drove historic RFIs from YouTube. The sales were off the chart. It was just a massive success. So there's a lot of different ways of sort of take advantage of that.
And I think that's interesting for big brands. If you have a big budget, or if you can give away a car for 3 months, or if you have some other type of trick up your sleeve, that's great, by all means. I don't have that. I assume the majority of people in this room don't have those kind of resources at our disposal. So with that in mind, what I tell people in regard to freelance, in regard to influencers, is every single one of us is an influencer. Every single one of us has an ecosystem of people that we are connected with and that we will continue to connect with in the future of 500 or 700 or 1,000 or several thousand people that can be relevant to your business, to your products and services. So the term influencer, yeah, it's sexy and you want to find the people with the biggest and the best followings, but a lot of us just can't reach those people because we don't have the free car for 3 months, or we don't have the budget to fork out to a bunch of freelancers because you can't really scale that. So what I would just tell everyone in this room is focus on every single one of your existing or potential customers. Those people will help you get to additional people, and that's where you create the network effect. And in terms of like your original question where like the real like versus the vanity like or whatever, I would just focus on the people that you're already interacting with and the people that are already interacting with you. So if you have a website, you can set up a pixel very easily through Facebook, and then anyone who goes to your website, you can then track back on the Facebook and you can say, hey, please like my Facebook page. That will be the objective of the ad. And you can also, let's say you only want to do business with people in Los Angeles. So you can tell Facebook, I only want people who live in Los Angeles and have been to my website to like my page. That's a real like, because they've been to your website, which means they're interested, they have some basic level brand awareness, and they're also in the location that you want to target, and that allows you to create that real like. And then from there, cultivate that relationship and turn that influencer into something bigger and better through word of mouth and other stuff like that.
Yeah, no matter your budget, I mean, influencer marketing is definitely evolving and changing because, you know, the idea, you know, when sort of TV moved to online is that online opened up the world for us to do more than just say we got eyeballs on it. So that's the biggest thing is yeah, you got eyeballs on it, but what did those eyeballs do? Meaning, like, how did those people convert? So no matter what influencer you're working with, you want to be really smart about it. So even if it is, you know, finding somebody, you're like, hey, this person's interesting, they buy my product once a month and they happen to have a little social following and, like, you know, I want to work with them. Just make sure that their audience is also your audience, you know what I mean? So just because that person, you know, buys your product, their ecosystem of people that follow them might not be the right target consumer. So, you know, I had an instance where I worked with an influencer who was in their late 20s, but their audience was teen girls, you know, so that kind of made sense for the brand. So for me, I've come from a background of, first of all, working in this space when there was no budget allocation and it was a new space to explore. And I've often worked on, you know, campaigns and with clients where I had to be really scrappy. I had to be really smart with my spend. So you just have to think efficiently. Like, is the effort there? And if it's you're not getting the return on the investment, and even if it's you're looking at it, you're like, man, I'm putting all this time and energy and effort into working with this person or working with this influencer or running this type of campaign, and I'm not getting the results that I set for myself, then you need to rethink it. And if you're like, you always want to set benchmarks. Even if those benchmarks are industry benchmarks or they're comparable, or you look at other campaigns and you're like, okay, this other campaign did this, I think we should probably hit that mark, or this is how we did it next month. The biggest advice I can give in terms of ROI and analytics is always set benchmarks for yourself and continuously evaluate those.
So you just brought up a really interesting question, and sir, you had actually emailed me, talked about this, is how do you use programming against competitors? So, you know, when we talk about benchmarking against competitors, or we talk about utilizing the data you're getting to position your company against competitors, which are sort of two different questions here. What is the role of competition in ROI, in measurement? How do you set the baselines, and then once you've set these baselines and you've created, how do you use the data to become a better company, to do business better, to knock down your competition?
Well, a lot of it is just seeing what they're doing online. I mean, I've worked in instances where I've worked on a brand where there was only really one other competitor, and they were just killing it in the digital space. And it was really just like watching them and looking at them and seeing what they were doing and seeing how things were converting. You know, obviously I couldn't go and lift up the veil and see what was happening behind the scenes, but, you know, thankfully with, you know, social media, you can definitely go out there and look and see, you know, what people are doing. The biggest thing is you have to find a way to differentiate yourself. So whether that is going, you know what, like, I'm not even gonna, I know somebody does the same business as me in New York, and like they've got that market, and again, maybe I'm not in that spot yet where I can go up head to head against them, and I just need to focus on where I know I can convert. So a lot of it is just, you know, keeping an eye on them, watching what they're doing, you know, learn from their successes and failures as well. You know, like, hey, they did that and that worked really well, how can we do it comparable? Or they did it and it didn't work great, it wasn't worth it, not going to do it again. There are so many case studies out there for you guys to look at, and people will publish the results oftentimes. You know, they'll publish the metrics, the numbers, even the ad spend, so you can go and look at it and you can figure out, like, you know, is this something I want to venture down the line of? Do I want to repeat this success? So it's definitely out there, and there's a ton of white papers as well that you can find.
You know, one of my favorite tricks is, you guys know Bitly links, right? And so in Twitter ads, a lot of people took Bitly links. And the best thing about any Bitly link is if you just put a plus sign at the end of it, it shows you their metrics.
Yeah.
So we used to track our competitors' Twitter campaigns by their Bitly link.
Yeah.
Because the number of clicks they got was a success. And so you see this massive campaign and you look and it's 35 clicks. And suddenly you're like, wow, we're better than that.
Yeah.
So what about using the data you're getting for competitive positioning, or for actually creating a differential?
So there's, first of all, the good news about social is that so much of this data is out there and open and available, right? So to your point. And there's a lot of technology and tools out there that are not very expensive that allow you to understand what your competition is doing at scale and make sense of it. So the ability to, so we work with Estee Lauder as an example, and Estee Lauder is cutthroat with L'Oreal in terms of what they're doing on an every minute basis that you wouldn't believe, right? There's 30 brands, they're competing with 30 brands, and they're always wondering, who are they going after, what are they doing? So to the point of ethnicity, so what ethnicities are they going after, what messaging are they targeting to different ethnicities? This can be found very quickly and a lot less painfully than you would imagine. So once you understand, identify the messaging, the strategies of your competitors, then what? Well, first of all, it allows you to see what to do and what not to do, right? Depending on over time, what is their earned media return with regards to different strategies, different initiatives. And I know I'm talking about big billion-dollar brands, but you can sort of bring that into your world as well. Whatever initiatives or activations you have, what is the impact after that moment? And especially in comparison to your competition. If your competition is doing something that is consistently sort of outperforming yours, then let's look at what they're doing, which you can, and the messaging tied to it, and all of that, and then either emulate or stay away from it.
That's great. Okay, guys, I hope you guys are getting your questions ready. We're going to be moving to Q&A soon, but not yet. All right, so ROI on social is something that's being tracked, or people are utilizing a lot of technologies to do social these days. We've got schedulers, and we're using headline generators to help us craft everything. How do you stay human in a world that's completely tech-based? How do you utilize, is it possible to humanize your social while you're using, or how to personalize, when in reality the ad tech software is getting there, but it's not there yet. So eventually we're going to be able to target Siddharth, because you're sitting in the front row at this conference, and I'll be able to target you just at a geolocation, but we're not there yet. So right now I'm just giving him a whole bunch of info that he may not even care about. But because you fit in a bucket, you're getting it. Is it possible to personalize or customize in social when you still have these generic tools?
I think, a few things. One, there's a lot of times where, if you're talking about social, so the first kind of process is you put out content, right? You publish content, and then there's an opportunity now for engagement. People are going to comment, or maybe they mention your brand, but they don't tag you, and so you can go and do a search on Twitter, Instagram, and find those posts. So you can have that one-to-one there. But I think, to your point of humanizing content, one of the things that we focus on, my team and I, with the brands that we work with, is creating lifestyle content, creating content that really speaks to the kind of multifaceted identities of the audiences that we want to reach. I'll give you a quick example. We work with a major tile company, right? And on a day-to-day basis, no one cares about tile. Right, so if we're just going to put pictures, and kind of what we were saying before about competitors, we looked at our competitors of this brand. Everyone's just putting pictures of tile, and no one cares about that. It doesn't do anything for anyone. So we gave ourselves the audacity to make the story bigger and to really infiltrate the lifestyles and the identities of our audience. Because the people that buy tile care about interior design and home improvement. And so we created a content hub that talks about those two things, interior design and home improvement. We don't even talk about tile at all. All it says is the name of the site, presented by the client. That's all it says. There's one word of tile on the entire website. Everything else is about, the 5 trends for Halloween to deck out your house, and what to do when you're considering buying a new home, and all these great pieces of information, kind of what Josh was talking about with his website, just really, really good content. But that's contingent on us understanding what people actually care about on a day-to-day basis. And if you can actually find those things, oftentimes they're not your product and service. And that's really hard for most businesses to understand and to grapple with, is that what you feel about your product and service, the average customer doesn't. They don't understand or appreciate the time and the effort and the money and the resources that you put into it. So you have to give yourself the audacity to make the story bigger and to actually give people on a day-in and day-out basis things and content that they truly care about, that match their identities, and that will create that human connection. When you say, I have something that I know you care about on a day-to-day basis, that'll create that connection that will lead to more engagement, and then more engagement will lead to more ROI.
I think most people expect as consumers, and again, don't forget guys, we're all just consumers ourselves. That's the biggest thing. Like, I've been working in this business for over 10 years, and it never failed. I'd walk into an agency like room and we'd be putting a pitch together, and I'm just like, guys, like, what are you doing? Like, is anyone buying this? I'm like, are you entertained? Because I'm not. Like, that's cheesy, or I don't get it, or like, this is a golf campaign. Do any of us play golf? No. Like, can we get somebody in here who does play golf? Like, you know, let's just make sure it's the right thing. I kind of lost I was going to say, so anyway, in terms of a product or a service or whatever, the space out there is so competitive. I mean, if you look at Yelp, if you look at Google reviews, look, people just they want a good product or they want a good service, and they expect that. And if they don't get it, then they're going to raise arms. But if you deliver a good product and you end it at that, then that's it, you've ended that connection. But if you take it to the next level and you provide them something you didn't even think that they knew that they wanted, then you're a step above the rest. So that's a prime example. Yeah, I need tile. I'm redoing my bathroom, I need tile. They gave me the tile was great. That's the end of the story. But if you think about bettering their lives, which is a huge motto of Walmart, same concept, like, yeah, we have products, you know, okay, end of story. Walmart, live better. That motto is still there today, and they create content, they work with influencers, and it's not about like, here's the paper plates for your barbecue, it's like, here's cooking ideas, and here's decoration ideas and stuff. So, you know, yeah, you can deliver a product, but there's going to be 5 other competitors out there that are delivering the same product or service. So think about how you can better their lives. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but think about when somebody's, whether it was, you know, a business or a brand or a restaurant or a product that bettered your life in a way more, you know, beyond expected.
Then I think just to add to that, like, the idea of bettering lives, it can be practical and like how-to stuff, like, you know, how to have an amazing barbecue or how to, you know, improve your bathroom or whatever. But there's kind of also what I call an emotional or entertainment value to content, which is just like making people laugh or like entertaining them. Like Marriott has feature films that they put out now, and these are just like films that are just like entertaining to watch, or like kind of action, a little bit funny. And I spent 20 minutes watching one of their feature films on YouTube. It's free. You can look up Marriott Films. And the point there is that they didn't like improve my life from like a practical standpoint, but they gave me enjoyment and entertainment for 20 minutes. And so look at it not just from the practical, like I kind of say, speaking to your head of like, here's some practical how-to tips on how to do whatever, you know, related to your product, but also the emotional, pulling the heartstrings and tapping into people's emotions. That in many ways will resonate more than the head stuff.
Just one final note. So ad tech at the end of the day is still very impersonal. It's very generic, as much as people are trying to make it less so. And social allows you to humanize your brain in a way that nothing else can compare it to. So the ability to, and I'm just echoing what they've said, but the ability to leverage the sentiment and the messaging that's coming from your social, that's the creative, there's your content, right? I mean, the user-generated content, there's no wonder why user-generated content outperforms brand sort of generated imagery and content 10 times out of 10. And there's an army of people out there that are talking about you that you're able to take that messaging and inform what they really want to hear, not generic sort of, you know, people behind the ivory towers making up what they want to make up. So that's where the message is. They're doing it already for you. It's free. Take advantage of it.
Especially for you small business owners or even large business owners, don't be scared to personify your brand. And what I mean by that is like, don't hire a spokesperson. That's not what I'm saying, you know, like don't put somebody in a costume, stand in the corner. I'm saying talk about the business of building a business. You know, we've kind of seen this like full circle. We went mass and then now we're going, you know, small again. So you have like Amex did their Small Business Sunday, like, you know, we're really focusing on the story of people making things. This awesome campaign out right now with Anthony Bourdain and Belvini, where it's like all about craftsmanship. And so Belvini was a product that was about, you know, making this really crafted product that's been around for a really long time. And it's a mass-produced product, but then they go to like glass makers and like, Masons and things like that, and talk about that story. So I think it's okay if you're a product or a brand to talk about who that is. And with the big companies, you see that happening where they showcase their employers, they tell the stories about their employers. I mean, what is it, the cereal company that does it? That I always...
Well, and GE is doing a huge, and so is IBM. Yes, the View from my desk.
Yeah.
And by showcasing the inside of their company, they're getting more job applicants. And interestingly enough, they're getting stock price stability. They're actually, which is a random side effect unless you're actually inside a public company, and that's a massive side effect. Talk about ROI. Stock stability is pretty much the highest ROI you can get, but they're doing it by showcasing this sort of like, this is how amazing it is to work here. And it's interesting because they're doing that because they, especially GE and IBM, they don't have customers who go out and just, it's not like I love Nescafe coffee, so I can just tweet it out. Nobody tweets out that they love the GE widget that's right here. They don't even know about it. So they've created their own content utilizing their own employees. So what's interesting is that all of you talked about is the customer journey and how you really cannot, unless I've heard this wrong, you really cannot identify ROI in social without really understanding who your customer is. And I also make it as a person. It's either a man or a woman. I give them a name. I define what they read. I define how many people in the room have created customer journeys for your business, not your social, but for the business that you can then buy social or create social against. How many of you, your company, well, I guess probably we don't even want to ask that, but that's something that I think that all of you, it sounds like you start with.
Yeah, I mean, it's like creating a persona. Like, who is this person? What drives them? What are their challenges? What's hard in their life? What's easy in their life? How do they operate? How do they run? Yeah, I work in social, but the biggest thing I've always done is think about the consumer journey.
Psychology,
yeah, it's the psychology of it. And like, if I go from point A to point B, so if I go from, and that's a huge part of almost, it's like the project management side of my job is, if you're a small business, you go hire the project manager, you're like, okay, I sent out this email, and then I read this email, and I went to this Facebook page, or I clicked on this ad, and it took me here. Go through that process, or have somebody who's never seen it before, like ask your friend and say, I want you to pretend like I just served you an ad. You would click on this, and you go to this, and like, are you compelled to click on that link and buy that thing? And like, most of the time you can probably catch it the first time around, even yourself, and go, no, actually that's not clear. The messaging is not clear. Or sometimes things are created in silos, and so I've seen where someone over here is creating the Facebook ads, someone over here is creating the email, someone over here is creating the website, and the language is not, the imagery is not even the same. It's not the same picture. It's not the same person. It's not the same copy. And I'm like, this is disconnected.
Head of marketing.
That's a new job coming available soon.
Well, I think it was interesting. I was at I think it was Social Media Week in 2012, and the head of digital media for the National Football League was speaking, and he said, and this was back in 2012, and I think most people in this room probably still aren't doing this, but he said, it used to be where you have like social media, and then your marketing team, and then like your HR, and like biz development, and all your different departments or roles or whatever. He said, today, it's not just about having social media as one of those pillars, but social media has to transcend every single one of your existing operations or people in your business. And I find a lot in the brands that I work with is that the people who are in HR or in research and development, they're like, oh, we don't need to know anything about social media, but every single person in your business or organization should have a basic fundamental understanding of not just social media, but of all the marketing, because marketing is messaging, it's branding, it's how you're talking to customers, it's how you're receiving feedback and circulating that within your organization, and then now putting out additional content that kind of responds to that sort of feedback and that sort of customer engagement. That's the first thing. I think the thing with the buyer personas that I would just be very careful of, I hate the word buyer persona or even customer journey, because when you kind of put it in that category, you're treating people as consumers. And we're just people. We don't look at ourselves as consumers. We look at ourselves as people who just happen to buy things for different reasons. You bought this Tommy Hilfiger shirt, Todd, for whatever reasons. But you probably didn't buy it because it's more comfortable than his shirt. You bought it because of that brand. And so, but that brand speaks to you as a person, not just to you as somebody who's going to buy a t-shirt. And when you make your social media and your marketing so product-centric or service-centric, you end up talking to people as consumers. And that automatically turns people off. And the crazy thing about social is that for the first time in the history of consumerism, people can literally tell Facebook, X on your ad and I never want to see an ad from you again. And you can do that on Twitter, and you can do that on basically every social media platform. And think about that for a second. You could never tell Toyota in 1990, I never want to see an ad on TV from you again. But now I can go on Facebook and I can tell Facebook, don't ever show me something from Toyota again. So the opportunity to reach people in our pockets is there, but you're also setting yourself up for completely blocking people out of your lives for future follow-up marketing and advertising and ultimately sales if the messaging is not correct. And that messaging, again, is based on human to human, not just business to consumer, business to business, what have you.
I actually, when I start campaigns, or we had the advantage with social media coming out that you didn't have to have a focus group or you didn't have to do a survey. You could actually go online and pull quotes verbatim. And I would do that before we even started a campaign. I would literally pull quotes from people online on what they were saying, and then I would say, okay, this is Sally, she's a single mom of 2 that lives in Idaho, and this is what she has to say, and I would start to pull that in. And then I would make sure that our creative and even our copy was verbatim using the words that they were using on social media, so that we were speaking like the consumers, the people, right? So that's a huge aspect of it, is that, again, something you can do. You can go online and like you were saying, like, you may have in your head how you think your product is or your service is, but go and pull those lines and that language from the people that are actually purchasing it or using it. And then what I would do is you can test different copy pieces and kind of, whether it's ads or content or whatever, but also think about a communication hierarchy. And what I mean by that is in the way that you're communicating, whether it's long form or short form, think about the key things that you want to get across, and always have like 1 or 2 things. Don't overrun it. So whether it's an email or a tweet, like, what do you want that person to do? So the other thing is, say you're running a promotion or something like that, then that promotion needs to move up in your communication hierarchy, right? You're running a promotion for December, you need to communicate to your team across the board and say, hey guys, everything's leading. Our biggest goal and objective for this December is to drive sales for this. This should be our #1 highest form of communication hierarchy, and everything gets bumped back down. That's something that's really easy. You can have like a top 3, and from a management standpoint, something you could send across on like a weekly basis. Like, hey team, this is our biggest communication hierarchy, so let's make sure that that's what we're doing. This could be even your sales reps in your stores going, by the way, did you hear about this? And then if that consumer has gone into your store, read an email, saw your Facebook page, and they've been told 3 times there is a sale in December, the likelihood that they're actually going to end up using that sale or promotion is much higher if you've touched them, if you've had multiple touch points with them.
It takes 22 touches, by the way, to make a sale. They have to see your brand 22 times. And the most impactful touches are third-party references to your business, which is another reason why you want to make sure you're feeding social media networks with content so you can generate retweets and shares. But I interrupt.
Just one last thing, and just to put a bow tie around what both of them said, especially what he said around the different functions of business, so operations, product, revenue generation, marketing, all of them, the connective tissue is this input that's coming from everything that you're doing in social. And as far as understanding what associations with your product you need to think about or stay away from for product, operational efficiency, based on how the market's reacting, this authentic market, right? Even RevGen, in the beginning of the funnel, all of these can be impacted, should be, by the common thread about your, not consumer, as he said, but about the people that are buying your product. So I think it's hugely important.
I have no idea what's going on with both of these. Now I'm back. Okay, this is great. I'm going to ask some pretty tactical questions now, and again, we're going to move to questions, so if you have some, Jeremy, I'm expecting you to have at least 6 for me ready. Social platforms. Which one is providing the most ROI? And I think everybody in this room understands that understanding your audience and understanding your content is key. So let's say you understand your audience, you understand your content, it is awesome. How do you know? Is there a platform that's currently providing higher than others?
Well, I'll say something that I think enough people are not talking about, which is that it's great when you can have an online store and you can set up a Facebook conversion tracking ad, and then Facebook will literally tell you, we drove this many people to the page, they bought the product, this is how much you spent, there you go. You know, how much you spent, how much you made, that's very clear. For the people that don't have that opportunity, or even if you do.
Oh, wait, real quick. How many of you do not have e-commerce websites? Perfect. Keep going, because I know what you're saying is hot.
I asked that question when you left the room in the beginning because I was curious too.
See?
Just want to know the audience. But, so that's great, right? You can then set up that ad and Facebook will tell you down to the very cent of what that conversion looked like and how much you made, how much you spent. And that works for a lot of cases. I know one of my best friends does Facebook ads for some pretty big businesses that are generating literally millions of dollars that way. They also have millions of dollars in budget. On the flip side, there's two big opportunities to generate ROI that have nothing to do with selling your product or service. And that is the revenue sharing programs that both Facebook and YouTube provide to content creators. Everyone in this room is a content creator, whether you want to call yourself that or not. And the key to understanding how to take advantage of, in addition to selling your product and service, but also making money on your content, is to treat your content as one of your products and services, in addition to your traditional products and services. Treat your content as if people would be interested in buying it. Because as I said before, the currency today is time and attention. The more time and attention that you garner in terms of your content, the more your content is worth. Literally. If you get 1,000 views on something, you'll get this much. And if you get 10,000, you'll get that much. And anyone in this room can tap into the Facebook and YouTube revenue sharing programs. Anyone. So very clearly, not only will you provide better marketing, better exposure, because you're putting content out there that people are interested in on a day-to-day basis, right? That will move them along the customer journey, if you want to call it that, to buying your products and services. But you're now recouping money in your investment of putting out that content by taking advantage of these revenue sharing programs.
So you're saying that marketing can then become a revenue source within the company?
We're doing it for our clients.
Every single person, this has got to be your top action item.
Yeah.
Become your own revenue generation center.
Yeah. So, and this is something that I call it the business of media. I have a free online course. You can come ask me how to get your hands on it. After this talks, literally step by step how we do this for our clients. It's very simple. You have to treat, like a media company, the New York Times, NBC, whatever, what's their product?
Information.
Right,
Content.
their content, right, exactly. So their product is their content. What is the worth of that content? The worth of that content is how many people engage with it on a day-to-day basis. That's why the New York Times can sell ads at a much higher rate than the Des Moines Register or whatever. Exactly. Thank you. So the point there is that if you get the eyeballs and you have good content and you treat your content as an actual product in and of itself, then you can make money off of your content in addition to actually acquiring more sales. So you're doing both here. You're recouping money on your marketing investment and you're making more money in terms of more sales.
I feel like we should just drop the mic, but I'm afraid I'd break it. Jennifer.
Oh, I was just, that's obviously really great too. I mean, I would just say I'm just more on like the sort of like, I'm putting like my small business hat on, I did it for media leaders. I'm in their conference, you can find me online. It's like 7 tips to your social strategy, actually, like a really great chart on like where to begin. The biggest thing is just really figure out, one, who your audience is and where that audience is online. Facebook obviously is huge. Most everyone is online and it's very advanced in what you can do, getting down to the point of actually, measuring conversion. But then you have like moms on Pinterest and you have teens and millennials on Snapchat and you have like professionals on Twitter and LinkedIn. So, just figure out where's your audience and where does it make sense to have a channel. The other thing I would say is don't get too big for your britches. Like if you can only actively maintain 1 or 2 channels, then just maintain those 1 or 2 channels, because what you don't want to do is just be on everything for the sake of being on everything, and then you're just wasting your time and effort. So I'm a big fan of efficiency. And so even though it's not like an equal, formula of I spent this much, I got this much, and this was my return. Think about that in terms of effort, time spent, energy from your company or your team or whatever. Like, do we right now just have the resources to maybe have a Facebook and Twitter account? Like, let's leave it at that and get really great at that and then move on. But don't get on something for the sake of being on something. Do your research before you even hop on board.
Okay, we're gonna go to Q&A. Yes. Well,
my name's James. I've been at a company for 5 months. We have an e-commerce store, and I'm delivering more site views, more visitors, but where we're struggling is converting those to sales. Can you give me something that I should look at or something we should think about, questions we should ask to help?
I mean, basically what she said a few minutes ago, which is you had to hit that person 22 times. And so I'm wondering, like, what are you doing when they get to your website? Like, are you collecting their email address? Are you tracking them back on the Facebook? And then once you are collecting their email address and or tracking them back on the Facebook, what kind of content are you delivering to them? Are you, if they're coming to a specific page on your website, assuming if you're e-commerce, you probably have several pages, web pages. So if they're coming to a specific page on your website, are you showing them an ad that correlates specific to that page versus another page where that messaging might be inconsistent or totally irrelevant? I mean, there's a lot of different variables here, but the main thing is that I would focus on how do I hit somebody. If the number's 22, it might be 12 for you, it might be 32. Whatever that number is for you, how do you hit that person in an efficient manner so you're not breaking the bank that amount of times while keeping them in your network, so getting their email, getting them to like you on Facebook, etc. And then ultimately finding out what that number is so that you can say, all right, if we have to hit that 12 times on average or 15 times on average, then you can build that into your CPA, your cost per acquisition, and that's kind of how I would tackle that.
are you using UTM links or URL builders?
Sometimes, yes.
So for people who are unaware of this, this is something you absolutely need to write down and start adding it. Anytime you, what they are, they're extenders that your analytics program gives you that you put on your own website URL. So instead of businesswire.com, it's businesswire.com/crazy long URL. And what we did is we used this to track inbound traffic. Found that the number of people who came to businesswire.com from our information was extremely high. The average time on site, 1 second. So we used that data and we rebuilt the landing page. The other thing that I noticed when we were doing this for conversions, and we don't have an e-commerce page, but we were doing this for conversions, is that the traffic coming in from each platform acted very differently. Facebook traffic, not one conversion, not one person downloaded the content we were positioning, but like 80% watched all the videos on the page. So what we found was we created a conversion video. So we knew they weren't going to download that document because nobody downloaded the document, but they would watch those videos. So we changed the videos on the site to be to say what the downloaded document was going to tell them. And so we got their views anyway. So that was by using those URL builders, and we used them by platform so we could track the impact of each platform in. But then going through what they were doing on the site, I mean, 1 second? Come on, people.
Don't discount your UX design. I'm not a web designer, but I worked on campaigns and I worked very closely with the web designers and the designers just to, again, think about the messaging we were driving and where they were coming from. So, and to your point, like different people are going to behave differently coming from different platforms potentially or from different messaging. Have somebody, if you're too in it, like if you've been working on that website for years and you're like, it works, it might not work anymore. So have somebody come in and take a look at it and look at that UX design. And unfortunately, it's just like people don't scroll, people don't go below the fold. Like you got to be very clear, like where's the big button, where's the big CTA, which is call to action. Like really, really do spend time and energy on your UX design. And sometimes it might be worth it for like a website refresh to hire a UX designer and say like, I think we need a refresh or something like that. Or thinking about how can we create individual pages off of our website that are a little bit more actionable or relate to a certain promotion or a certain ad or something like that. So maybe it's different consumers in the different cycles. So maybe it's the first touch point. You just want to educate them. So it's like, why am I going to sign up for a newsletter? I don't even know who you are. So you're just driving them to a video view page and you're measuring those views. And then maybe touch point number 3 is like, well, maybe now they want to sign up for a newsletter. And then touch point 12, it's like, okay, well now I'm kind of considering buying the product.
Morgan. Yeah.
Hi, is there same analytics for LinkedIn?
LinkedIn analytics. LinkedIn does have its own analytics program. You have to, as a business, just claim your business page, and it tells you views. You can do paid advertising programs with LinkedIn. Most of them are boosted content, where you create a thing, and then what you actually do is you go through and you look and see which of your status updates had the most views, and you put paid behind it. What I found on LinkedIn is, since the aspiration for people on LinkedIn is professional competition, that any updates that you write that tell people how that reading your information is going to make their job better. Remember, the who, what, where, when does really well there. The 6 tips to rocket, or my favorite is, if you don't read this, you will be fired. Those tend to do very well, but LinkedIn does have its own statistics. You just have to go into the analytics page. And they just revamped them, I think, within the last year.
Yeah.
Hi.
I was just going to ask a quick question. As a marketer, one of the biggest challenges we have is actually attributing what
Last touch attribution.
And yeah, as you know, 95+% of people don't click on anything digital. It's all post view. And so the open web has gotten really good about allowing you to measure post view impact of pre-roll and display and all that. These walled gardens, though, at Facebook, they don't want to let you do that. They want you to use their own attribution, which doesn't play into a larger multi-touch attribution. How are you guys doing on that?
Perfect, because everyone's familiar with the question, which is, it used to be whatever the last click was, that person got the credit for the sale. Like you would do, I could do all this work, and then you would just click a button, and my coworker would get all the credit, and I'd be like, so there's a movement towards last click attribution, towards understanding the funnel. What are all the clicks that turned into that last? Any tips on measuring that? I love everybody's face because we're all in the same boat. We're like,
I mean, you just got to play by the rules that exist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen workarounds on Facebook, but I think that it's one of those things that you don't have to use Facebook. Facebook's not making you use Facebook, but anyone in this room or anyone who's in marketing, I think would be foolish not to use Facebook, and the amount of consumer data that they house, and the sophistication of their advertising platform is just literally unlike anything we've ever seen. So I hear the pain, but at the same time, I try to look at Facebook as just an unprecedented opportunity in the history of advertising and marketing.
I look at things, I really, across the board, look at things holistically. So, I was running a campaign where we were running ads on Facebook and we were running ads on Pinterest, and our conversion rate was lower, or sorry, rather, our cost per conversion was lower on Facebook than it was on Pinterest. But Pinterest is very much like a source of information where people go to kind of, this was particularly about pregnancy, and so that was a huge area where people were looking for information. It was more important, peer-to-peer driven. And so even though, it was cheaper to run on Facebook, I still saw the value of running on Pinterest. And so what we did is we said, well, look, our average is pretty good between the two. So let's keep it going. So yeah, sometimes just doing the cheapest thing is obviously not the route to go. So looking at it as a whole holistically and saying, okay, well, Facebook did this, and then Pinterest did this, and then we did this, and then what's the big picture and all together, and then hey, end of story, end of quarter, sales were up. So let's just keep forging on. I think that's comes from a place where none of this was out there before, and so we've been justifying this for so long, been screaming to the rooftops, it's important, we should be on social. And now everyone's like, well, yeah, but what's the hard and fast numbers? And I'm like, sometimes it's not a hard and fast number. Sometimes, we've talked about this before, I talk about this all the time, where it's like, what, we're just gathering information, and that's really valuable. We're hearing from our customers, and that's really valuable. Does it need to have a conversion number against it? Not all the time.
It's interesting, Jeremy, you're up next. It's interesting because in the working for Business Wire, I work with a lot of financial and the investor relations departments. And about 10 or 15 years ago, there was this movement away from just your numbers, that the company was more than the bottom line. That's where CSR comes around. That's where we now talk about how great the CEOs are, the internal metrics of the company. And I think that social's really been part of that. It used to be that only email marketing. Well, that's great. I could track everything inside that email marketing, and then I could tie it to my sales database. But in order to showcase the entire brand, you kind of have these still sort of loose tied ends. Right. Oh, Jeremy. Let it go. If you guys don't know Jeremy Pepper, you should be following him. James Pepper.
So it sort of fits into what you said, because I'll totally disagree with you. And I'll base it with a question, though. being at both startups and Fortune 100s, Fortune 500s, they don't care about the touchy-feely stuff. And this sort of fits into like what the biggest issue in social media has been our pundits and our leaders saying, what's the ROI of your mom?
Is that Scott Lonnie?
No.
Or Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And then you got having Scott say like, what's the ROI of your pants? So you have that mentality out there, and then it's a very hard time because all the companies want to be in the new platforms like Snapchat, which had no real metrics. So how do you balance the demands from the C-suite of having real numbers with the jackassery of the pundits saying it's ROR, which I love 10, but ROR is just dumb as fuck. And then marrying that with the new platforms everyone wants to be on, there are nothing there.
Well, no, I mean, I think there's tremendous value in having a two-way communication with your customers. What you do with that value is up to you. I have seen two different examples between clients that I've worked with, where in one example it was a restaurant, and I know we were on a panel about a month ago, so I'm sorry I'm saying this again, where we had 3 different people in 1 week comment on Yelp, leave a review on Yelp about a specific area in the restaurant that was poorly attended to. It was like the bar. And it was at the same time of day in the morning. 3 different messages, 2 different people. I got horrible service at the bar in the morning. Well, there's only one woman that works at the bar in the morning at the restaurant. So we were able to internalize those reviews, and we were able to go and nip that problem in the butt before it potentially became a bigger problem. Okay. Now, to your point, well, we didn't acquire a new customer, or we didn't upsell or cross-sell anything, but we potentially extended the lifetime customer value of additional customers by nipping that in the butt so that it doesn't become a bigger problem and we don't turn off more people. Now, on the flip side, I've worked with a client who gets a ton of negative feedback on their social platforms, and this is a bigger client. They have, I think over 1 million Facebook likes, so tons of comments all the time. And they're in the consumer products industry, so people are complaining about, like, they came out with some product, they didn't like it. Now, they have an agency that is running the platforms. Here's the problem. That agency is not sharing that information with the departments of the actual company that they're working for. And that customer feedback is vital and should be internalized into the business and research and development portion of that company to better serve their customers now and in the future. So customer relationships are extremely important, and if you're not maximizing the opportunity to have that two-way dialogue and to leave that door open so that people can come and tell you how to fix your business, how to improve your business, how to improve the customer experience, which they say by 2020 is going to be the #1 decision-making factor in a customer's mind. Not price. Price is part of customer experience, not only price.
Yeah.
People are willing to pay 25% more if they have a good experience. The question is, are you going to get that 25%, or is your competitor?
Like the $66 collard greens at Neiman Marcus, which sold out.
Yeah.
Somebody was buying it.
Just bottom line, like, good creative is creative that's captivating and consumer is connected, whatever that is, right? That's good creative. I'm generalizing. I'm saying good creative is creative that is engaging and interesting and people respond to it. A lot of good creative wouldn't have come about if people didn't go out there and see about the loosey-goosey stuff that people were saying. All that touchy-feely stuff is taking the things that people are talking about and excited about and turning that into good creative, and then putting that good creative in a good campaign that drives good numbers in sales projects. So that's why I talk about being holistic. I get it, like you go to your CEO, he's like, did we make sales? Yeah. He's probably not gonna want to know about all this stuff in between, but you should be fighting for that. You say, look, yeah, here's all the analytics and here's all the the hard, fast number stuff, but none of that would have happened. I did this, for example, for a prenatal genetics testing company. If I hadn't have gone out and looked online and looked at Pinterest and saw what people were responding to and what they were talking about and all that touchy-feely stuff about pregnancy and trying to get pregnant, all of that I had to get to create the ads, to then measure those ads, to then convert to sell the product.
And just to come full circle, I think when we started this, we brought up the movie example of movie studios. When they release a movie, it's a year in advance where they drop the first trailer, the first poster, and then they're testing on getting it. And they test it all, right? And what is the reaction of the people to whatever initiative it is, and then they'll course correct along the way. Now, the CEO of that studio or that movie, what does he care about? That opening weekend, those numbers, the second weekend, those box office results. But that journey along the way of that authentic sort of reaction to those initiatives, you can't have one without the other, right? So the C-suite gets what they want, but there's a long building process to that sort of moment.
Okay. We can take one last question. Sorry, guys.
Sure, it's a great discussion, and as an agency owner, I want to get all your opinions about ROI. Is it becoming more, I don't know if you'd say 50-50 percentage of qualitative and quantitative analysis, because you're right, I think it's a little lazy to say just about the numbers. I think it's really easy to say that, and I have a similar experience as far as monitoring. I tell my clients, like, I don't want to monitor your social. That's own media, you own it. I want you guys to tell me what the hell's going on with your own company. And I'm forcing them to actually take responsibility for the right reason. But I was just curious, like, what do you guys do in order to, like, close that gap? And I'm talking about not mega Coca-Cola companies, but
right.
like, you know, maybe 100 million
and you have a minute each, because they're kicking us out of this room.
Okay, go for it.
Great question. I didn't mean that.
That was the question I wanted
So
to
for me, what I said before is I make sure that my clients understand the importance of understanding that social media or digital marketing, whatever you want to call it, is a business-wide, company-wide, organization-wide effort. And everyone needs to be involved, all hands on deck, in different capacities, of course. And then I had a client one time where they were offline brick and mortar, so couldn't really attribute any direct sales, but they had a 3% year-over-year growth since they hired us, and they're doing $20 million in sales. So you can do the math of what that 3% looks like. We couldn't say it was only because of the marketing, only because of digital, only because of social, but we knew that because we had all hands on deck, that we had, and this is the same company, by the way, the restaurant example, because we had systems in place that we were able to internalize customer feedback, because we were able to, you know, be on message and understanding when people come to a specific page of our website, they're going to see one ad versus another ad. 3% increase in a $20 million business is pretty good.
Not so bad.
Yeah.
So you're lazy.
I would just say, like, first and foremost, and I've been doing this my entire career, everyone has to agree on a goal and objective. And sometimes the client doesn't know. And so you figure it out for them. You say, look, I've done that. I've done that for Sony. Like, I figured out their entire retail marketing strategy for their home entertainment company. And I was sitting in the room with PR, with marketing, with the retail team, and everyone's going, we're just, what do we do? And I was like, oh, okay, the goal and objectives create a process. Great. Like, we can't do everything for everyone, so I basically created a system. And that was just going in and having conversations saying, like, we have to align on a goal and objective. And then you have to say, how are we going to measure success? And what is that benchmark, and how do we measure success? And it's also just about giving yourself the time, like, to roll out a strategy and say, here's our goal and objective, here's what our benchmarks are going to be, we're going to do it from this point to this point, and then we're going to reevaluate at this point, and then we're going to move on. And honestly, sometimes for me, coming from the agency side, or, you know, even internally, it's just about organizing the process, you know, and figuring out, that's the hardest thing to overcome oftentimes. It's just, how are we going to do it? Where do we start?
And just one last thing is that for every industry, whatever industry you guys are in, there have been a lot of people before you that have done it very well. There's a lot of examples of how to do it and what to do, so don't feel like you have to create everything from scratch. And there are industry indexes, and you can measure how you're doing against the industry, but again, there's a lot of the best practices, I hate to use that word, but that are out there that you should look for.
This entire industry was the first industry that was completely done with Q&As online, with open best practices online. There's no other industry that has grown as fast as social, and you're exactly right. Don't forget to look at SlideShare for really great best practices. And then Pinterest is a secret hidden spot for best practices. Everybody has the smartboard. We are done, and thank you three so much.